Morning, everybody. Thank you. This is the VRE Operation Board Audit Committee meeting. Unfortunately, right now, we're waiting for the auditors to sign on. As soon as we know they're on board, they can start their presentation. Ms. Larson?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you. You are the chairman. You are the chair of this committee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and you take it from there as soon as we get the auditors online.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
James
has joined the meeting.
Good morning. Just like to check and confirm. Dwight, are you on the call with us this morning? James
has left the meeting.
Hi, Gary, it's Janine.
Go ahead, Jeanette.
Has anybody contacted Dwight to find out what the status is?
Has joined the meeting.
They're doing that right now.
Okay.
The last 5 minutes, we've been trying to either send an email or call them directly.
Okay. Was that James that just asked, and who just asked if Dwight was on the call?
That was Robert.
Go ahead, sir.
That was me, Robert Hostelka.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll just stand by.
If you have any recommendations, please feel free to give them to us.
The only recommendation I have at the moment is the need for caffeine.
And now we know how valuable caffeine is when we actually all meet together.
Yeah. Hey, Robert, it's Janine again. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how about Mark? Is he on the call? Or is he supposed to be on the call?
Mark is working on getting in touch with Dwight right now.
Okay. So I'm somewhat new to the audit committee, and I think we have some other new members, ops board members on the audit committee. Can you just, while we're waiting, can you just kind of give a summary or an overview of the plan and the purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. Can everyone hear me okay?
I mean,
Yes.
Thank you. So the audit committee meets twice each year. So this is the first meeting of the two. This is the preliminary meeting. The point of this meeting is really quite short usually. It's a chance for the audit partner to tell the committee what the focus of the audit will be this year. If there's any new guidance that has come from GASB that needs to be implemented. Give an update. The auditors have actually already done their preliminary field work. They did that remotely last month. Give the committee a little bit of an update on how that went. And then it's a chance for the committee members to ask any questions that they have. And if they have things or items that they want the auditors to look closely at, they can convey that to the auditors. So it should be a relatively informal kind of meeting. We will then have our final field work with the auditors at the end of August. And we will spend September and October putting together the CAFR and the financial statements. The audit committee will then meet again in November. That's the bigger meeting where Dwight will review the statements with the committee and present the auditor's letter that speaks to you know the quality of the review and the quality of our financial statements. The committee will be asked to accept the letter and the statements and pass those along to the full board, and the full board will then have a board item to accept those statements as well. Does that sort of lay the process out there okay?
That does. Thank you, Mark.
Chairman Lawson.
Yes. Go ahead.
This is Meg Bomke as a new member of this committee. I was wondering, are there any material weaknesses that staff has looked at over the last couple of years that the board needs to be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. Gary or Katie, you're on the line. Do you have an
Sure.
answer for Supervisor?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Janine. Thank you. And Meg thinks that's a great question. So I've served on this is Katie speaking. I've served on the audit committee since I think, let's see, 2017. And I'm happy to report that there have been no substantial issues. We've had the auditors from PB Maris visit with us about some of the changing GASB standards, which Mark Schofield just referenced. They've each year asked us if there's certain things we as the executive committee would like to focus on. And so we may have an opportunity to do that with them today. But no, each year they deliver, I think they don't use the term clean audit anymore. They say an unmodified opinion, I think. And so we've been fortunate to have that good track record.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Sure.
I actually have a question. I'm curious, how much does our auditor look into, especially like Keolis as our biggest contractor, how in depth do they look at, or do they at all look at our contracts or our contractor per se?
I'm not sure they do. Mark might be able to weigh in, but I think it's generally they may look at our procurement process.
Okay.
But I don't think they audit how our contractors are performing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Mrs. Crystal. They will often do a sort of sample of our contracts and our procurements. And so, they might happen to look, for example, at a particular Keolis task order or something like that. But there's not a particular comprehensive look at any one contract.
Okay. Does anybody else on the committee have other questions? No? Okay. Guess that we're still trying to track down PB Mayors.
Yes, we are. I do apologize.
That's okay. I'm wondering if this will qualify as the audit committee without the auditor on. Is Steve McIsaac on the phone? He's not on this call, is he?
He is.
Yeah, yes, he is. I would say that it's unusual to have an audit committee meet without the auditor here. It's certainly not a requirement prior to the acceptance of the audit, though. I assume you've seen a document. I mean, has anything been presented to you?
No, I don't believe so.
Well, that's tough for the committee to make any kind of report, that's for sure.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't preclude Dwight appearing before the ops board and making his report directly to them without any, sort of pre-review, if you will, by the committee. Like I said, the audit committee's meeting is not a prerequisite to action by the board.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? This is Meg again.
Go ahead, Meg.
So since I'm a newbie, have we had PB Mayors as our auditors for a couple years? And how many years are remaining in that contract? And will we be bidding out? Do you guys have in your board policies and procedures that we rebid the contract every so many years with renewables, et cetera?
Good question. Mark, can you answer that?
Yes, I sure can. We are coming to the end of PB Mayors' last option. I believe it's a 2-year option period. So we will be going out on the street relatively soon with a new procurement for the auditing services. PB Mayors is also the auditor for both of the parent commissions. So there is some advantage there because our books are, of course, intertwined with theirs.
And Mark, do you guys bid that together?
I will get back to you on how that happened in the past, Ms. Bomke. I believe we did.
Okay.
Good question, Meg. You've had your caffeine, haven't you?
Yes, I have, Janine.
Yeah. I'm very envious.
he lets you all know we're still trying.
We're in contact with him.
We're trying to get him on the phone right now.
Great. Thanks, Gary.
Yes, ma'am.
It'd be nice to cross this off of our
Yes.
list.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely right.
Dwight Baracker. Dwight
Morning,
Baracker.
Dwight.
Has joined the meeting.
All right, Ms. Lawson, I'm going to turn this over to you, please.
Okay. Good morning, Dwight. This is, I'm Janine Lawson. I'm the chair of the audit committee. I represent a district in Prince William County. And obviously I'm on the ops board. And we have several members of the audit committee on the line, and we look forward to a preliminary discussion with you, probably just for the next 10 minutes before we have to start our 9 o'clock ops board meeting. And while we were waiting to connect with you, Mark gave a good overview of the purpose of the audit committee and the plan. And I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll open it up to any questions or direction that the audit committee members may have. So go ahead, Dwight. Dwight, are you on? Mark? Mark, are you on?
Yes, we're here.
I'm here.
Okay, Dwight, maybe you lost your connection for a minute.
I can hear everyone. I guess no one can hear me?
We could not, but now we can. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, great. So Dwight Baracker, I serve as the audit partner on the engagement for VRE with PB Mayors. The purpose of this call this morning is to get an understanding, or for the audit committee to ask us questions or to voice any concerns that they may have regarding controls or other items that you would like us to look into while we perform the audit engagement. We have completed our preliminary field work that was done remotely, obviously, and everything while we were performing preliminary field work went very smoothly. So that's a credit to VRE and their staff there, Mark, Alex, and everyone, and being able to go to a remote audit in such a short period of time and put the procedures and things in place to make sure the entity continues to operate efficiently. So kudos to that group. And during our field work, we've tested controls around procurement, payroll, things of that nature. And we determined that all controls, even in the remote environment, are working properly and things are being done as they should be. So we had no concerns through preliminary field work. And, this whole COVID thing obviously has been a detriment to a lot of entities and their ability to operate, but the procedures and things that VRE has put in place during this time, has been great. And I think they've done a great job transitioning more to a remote type environment or paperless environment that probably in the long run has sped up their process of going to a paperless environment and moving away from paper. So just great job by their staff there.
That's good to hear. Thanks, Dwight. So
So
I have a question. This is Supervisor Lawson. Before I turn it over to other audit committee members, do you also look at the IT side of the organization and audit any concerns as far as IT and security?
yes, ma'am. As part of our process, we had a Zoom meeting with the individual there that handles IT, and we walked through controls around that environment and discussed some of the controls that have been placed in service since moving to the kind of remote office work for everyone. And based on everything that we've seen, controls are operating efficiently and how they should be. And, you know, as VRE transitions to a new accounting system, probably, I think maybe in fiscal year 21, that may occur. We'll come in and then do a whole in-depth review of the new system and the controls that were put in place there. But based on the system that's in place now and the controls that are there, everything was sufficient.
Okay, good to hear. And one last quick question. Do you have anything you need to present with this?
No, not at this. This is just a meeting to give you all a chance to voice any concerns or questions that you may have, or any areas you may want us to look at when we go back and perform the final field work, which I was just recently informed that's going to be also performed remotely. So if there are concerns or areas that you would like us to look into, this is your opportunity to voice that to us.
Okay, so I'm going to open that up to any audit members.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and any questions they have?
Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Hearing none,
Katie, I was just going to ask a quick question. This is Katie. I was hoping to ask whether there are any new federal standards that that you'll be investigating and recommending we adjust to this year.
Any federal standards?
Indeed, new GASB pronouncements, et cetera.
There could be, with the CARES Act funding, there could be some additional federal compliance testing that we'll have to implement into our audit. As of now, there's been no guidance regarding the funding that's been received. And, as you are aware, that funding flows through PRTC to VRE. So the testing or work around that will be in conjunction with the PRTC audit that we perform as well.
Thanks. That's helpful.
Yes.
that's a good question, Katie. Thank you.
Yeah, we're still waiting on guidance on what type of audit procedures and things will be required, but that hasn't been released yet. So hopefully here in the next month or so, we'll receive that information before we start final field work. And as I said, we also audit TRTC, which is about a month later than VRE. So if they are a little late in getting out that guidance, we'll be able to handle that work also when we're at PRTC.
Hey, I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
So do you see this audit being just virtual? But I think we have to maintain, do we? Of our CEO, our term. Do we have the capability to hold an audit in the buildings? Do we have this do space, 6 feet and stuff like that?
The process we're headed towards right now, similar to the preliminary audit, is to do it virtually. A lot of it's just electronic anyway.
Okay.
So, and then from that audit, if there has to be more precise work that needs to be done that can only simply be done, accommodations for that.
Yeah, and I think, based on how preliminary field work went, if we do have to go to a remote audit for final, I don't see there being an issue there. I think VRE's done a great job transitioning to a paperless environment. So the data information that we need to receive in order to complete the audit, they've been able to upload to us through a secure portal that we use for testing and things of that nature. So, and the ability to set up Zoom meetings and screen sharing with staff has worked great. So I think if we have to continue with a remote audit, there shouldn't be an issue in completing that timely.
Any other questions from the members? Okay, with that, I think we're going to end the committee meeting because we have to hop on, especially because we have to hop on an ops board meeting in a few minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
well, I appreciate it. And if anything was to come to your attention or something was to come up that you would want to discuss with us, Mark has my contact information, and just feel free to reach out to me, and we'll take those considerations into our final field work that begins in August.
thanks, Dwight. I appreciate it. And if I have any follow-up, I'll shoot you an email.
Okay, great. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Steve, is there anything that we need to formally do before we all get off this call and jump onto the ops board?
Nope, I think just adjourn the meeting and you're done.
Okay, I appreciate everybody participating on the call, and we'll hop off and see you in a couple minutes.
And this is Robert Hostelka. Just a reminder, everybody can just stay on this call right here. This call is going to shift right over to the board meeting momentarily.
Robert, that's good to know. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Dwight Baracker. Dwight Baracker.
Has left the meeting.
Cindy Shelton.
Has joined the meeting.
Good morning, everybody. This is Gary. We're going to bring the VRE operation board to order.
Good morning.
Good morning. We'll just start. We would like, if you're not speaking, please. We've got a little bit of feedback coming back. I think that's good now. Thank you. Okay, good morning and welcome. Hoping everybody is still safe and well. And I'm going to ask Rich to review the participation instructions for the board members. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a quick reminder, if you are not speaking, just make sure that you're on mute. But to mute or unmute your microphone, Only click on the microphone icon on your computer. No changes to your phone are necessary if that's the way that you are receiving the audio. If you wish to send a chat message to an administrator, click on the chat icon. Reminder, no public business can be conducted over the chat. Also, to raise your hand for questions or comments, open up the participant window, click the hand icon next to your name to raise your hand. The only visual component of this meeting is the presentation slides, which are being shown to those on the WebEx and on the VRE YouTube channel. These slides include photos of the main speakers. Chairman Skinner will ask
A
for
participant has joined the meeting.
or comments after receiving a motion and a second to consider each resolution. To indicate you have a question or comment and wish to raise your hand, again, simply click on the participant button and then on the hand icon next to your name in the participant list. Keep the participant window open, which should show up on the right side of your screen. Robert Hostelka will be monitoring the hand raising and will let the chair know if there are any questions. When called upon, please announce your name and to whom your question, comment is. And then finally, there will be a roll call vote for each action item. Please follow the roll call and be ready to unmute when your name is called.
Does anybody have any questions for Rich at this time? Right, then we'll go right into the roll call. Leslie, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Miss Bailey,
Present.
Miss Bennett Parker,
Here.
Miss Bomke,
Sorry about that. Here.
Mr. Sandejas,
Here.
Miss Crystal,
Here.
Miss Franklin,
Here.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Ms. Lawson,
Here.
Ms. Mitchell,
Here.
Ms. Shelton,
I think she just joined.
Ms. Shelton.
Miss
Here. Did you hear
Shelton?
me?
Oh,
Can
Okay,
you not hear me?
Yes.
thank you. Yes, we do now. Mr. Smith,
Okay, thank you.
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Stork, Mr. Walkinshaw.
Here.
All right, and Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Resolution number 3-07, 2020, finding need to conduct the July 17th, 2020 meeting electronically. We have a preliminary resolution necessary to conduct this virtual meeting. Rich will give the board an overview of item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board finds the meeting by electronic means is authorized because the nature of the current declared emergency makes it both impractical and unsafe for the Operations Board to assemble in a single location. Are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the Operations Board lawful duties, and the items on today's agenda are encompassed within the continuity of operations ordinances adopted by several member localities of the VRE to assure continued operation during the disaster posed by the public health emergency resulting from COVID-19.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 3-07, 2020?
So
Bennett Parker,
moved, Supervisor Bailey.
Ralph Smith,
second.
Did y'all get that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Would the clerk please call roll for the vote to approve the resolution? Resolution.
Ms. Bailey,
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker,
Aye.
Ms. Bomke,
aye.
Mr. Sandejas,
Aye.
Ms. Crystal,
Aye.
Ms. Franklin. Aye. Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Lawson,
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Shelton, Ms. Shelton,
Aye.
there we go, we got you. Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah, aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
That resolution passes, Mr. Chairman.
You didn't include Mr. Stork in that?
Mr. Stork, I didn't have you on our roll call, so what is your vote, sir?
It's aye.
Thank you so much.
Do I have a motion in a second to approve the agenda? Will everybody please check that you're on mute?
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, Katie Crystal, move approval of the agenda.
Thank you.
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, will the clerk please call roll for the vote on the approval of the agenda?
Ms. Bailey.
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Bomke.
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas.
Aye.
Ms. Crystal.
Aye.
Ms. Franklin.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Lawson.
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Ms. Shelton.
Aye.
Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Stork.
Mr. Stork?
Yes, Mr. Stork. Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes.
Thank you very much. Number 5, approve the minutes of the June 19, 2020 VRE Operations Board meeting. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the June 19th meeting?
So move, Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Ralph Smith.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll for the vote.
So move. Aye, I'm sorry.
Ms. Bennett Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Bomke.
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas.
I abstain.
Abstain. Ms. Crystal.
Aye.
Ms. Franklin. Ms. Franklin, I didn't catch you.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Lawson.
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Ms. Shelton.
Aye.
Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Stork.
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. It's now Chairman's comments, just a few things. Earlier this week, I sent a letter to Congressman Beyer and Whitman thanking them for introducing the Long Bridge Act of 2020. This bill gives the National Park Service authority to convey necessary federal property for the construction of a new Long Bridge. It's an important step in getting us closer to construction of the additional span of the Long Bridge. And it's made, but a reminder that we do have a Finance Committee meeting right after this meeting. Also, there is no August op boards meeting, so I hope everyone has an opportunity to enjoy some time off. And now Acting CEO Rich Dalton will give his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, operations board members and others. I too hope all of you are safe and your families remain safe and healthy during this time. Let me first start by saying or recognizing a recent safety milestone from our operations. The Keolis transportation team assigned to Broad Run or the Manassas line reached the 4-year mark for 0 controllable injuries. To date, that trend continues. VRE staff and Keolis senior management met with the train crews this past Monday morning and thanked them for their continued efforts and focus on a positive safety culture. As ridership returns, the continued emphasis on social distancing, the wearing of face coverings, hand hygiene, disinfecting trains and facilities remain key. Our facilities and mechanical operation teams have installed signage and other visual cues at station platforms and onboard trains to enhance our ability to manage social distancing. Concurrently, hand sanitizer dispensers have been installed onboard trains and at stations and at various VRE facilities. These efforts and others are part of an aggressive are also captured in an aggressive communications campaign to inform riders and the public. Of course, our overall objective here is to ensure riders are provided a safe and healthy commute on board VRE trains. Since face coverings were mandated by the Governor's Executive Order 63, we continue to see almost 100% daily compliance. The exceptions identified in the executive order are currently managed through adherence to social distancing. Then I wanted to mention here too, on July 1st, I hosted Delegate Reed, who represents the 32nd District in Virginia and is an MVTC Commission member, for a tour of the Broad Run Maintenance and Storage Facility. We demonstrated our enhanced cleaning processes, briefed them on how we are managing social distancing on board our trains, and then we took a train ride from the Burke Center station back to Broad Run. While at Burke Center, we were able to brief Delegate Reed on how we are managing social distancing at the stations as well. I truly appreciate Delegate Reed's taking the time to see firsthand what we are doing to manage our welcoming back ridership campaign and the methods we have deployed to keep our staff and riders safe and healthy. Next. We continue to operate on a reduced service level or an S schedule. Our overall ridership continues to be down compared to the same period last year. But since the phased reopening, we have seen an increase in ridership on a week-over-week basis. Next. Average daily ridership rose above 1,000 for the first time since mid-March, when the national emergency was declared. And as this ridership continues to trend up, and in order to continue to manage social distancing, we are currently working on returning a couple of Fredericksburg line trains to the lineup, and that'll help us with, there's some dominant commute windows that folks are riding in, and again, in order to maintain that social distancing, we want to be able to add at least another northbound and another southbound train. Again, hopefully we can do that within the next couple of weeks, and information will be coming out soon, within the next couple of days, on that service enhancement. On-time performance has been strong and well above the levels we experienced the same period last year. I want to make a note here that, and as previously reported in May, we implemented a seasonal schedule. And as most of you recall, during the summer months, we are impacted tremendously as it relates to our on-time performance by heat orders, predominantly on the Fredericksburg line. So I just wanted to give you a quick little snapshot here, albeit it's just for 1 month. But if you notice on this graph in the middle, the Fredericksburg line, June of 2020, was at 97%. And in comparison, for June of 2019, we had about 50% of the service days had heat orders implemented. And our on-time performance, as you can see in this graph for June of 2019 was 67%. For June of 2020, 68% of our service days had heat orders. Now, again, because we're in a seasonal schedule, those heat orders did not materially affect on-time performance. So again, I know this is only just 1 month, but this gives you some idea, and it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, simply because we're running a reduced schedule. And last year, this time we were on the tail end of recovering from PTC implementation, but a 97% on-time performance, whether you're running an S schedule or a regular service, is a pretty reliable service. So I just wanted to point that out as it relates to on-time performance. Next. In support of our partners at Amtrak, we collaborated with Amtrak and DRPT and agreed to temporarily suspend the cross-owner program or the step-up tickets. This will allow Amtrak to better manage social distancing on their trains. And just as a reminder, this is a program whereby VRE riders in possession of a monthly 10-trip or 7-day pass can ride select Amtrak trains when they purchase an additional step-up ticket. This is not a highly utilized program right now for VRE riders, so we will continue to work with Amtrak to reinstate the program once it's practical to do so. But again, this helps Amtrak in their efforts to manage social distancing on board their trains, because the step-up riders are not, they're not pre-booked. They just show up, and it becomes somewhat problematic on board Amtrak trains to ensure that they can maintain and manage social distancing. So we're glad to participate in that. I did want to point out at MBTA's July 9th meeting, the authority approved many important transportation projects for the region. And I just wanted to highlight 3 projects directly related to VRE. Of course, at the top is the Crystal City Station and related track projects. The authority awarded $15.8 million to that project, and that's a VRE-led project. The authority also awarded the $22.96 million for the Franconia Springfield passenger rail bypass that effectively will improve reliability specifically for VRE and Amtrak trains. And then finally, there was an award for work to progress the proposed pedestrian bridge or tunnel connecting Crystal City and the Reagan National Airport. And at least in the conceptual phase, there's an opportunity there to frankly connect that access to the Crystal City Station. So I just wanted to point that out. And of course, we definitely appreciate the continued support from the region and MBTA as we collectively work to improve our regional multimodal system. And then just finally here, I just want to, again, as we welcome back our riders, I again want to thank our staff, onboard train crews, transportation managers, the facilities and mechanical operations team, and others for their efforts towards planning and executing the additional safety and health measures. Their tireless efforts continue to be remarkable and have not gone unnoticed. And finally, I want to thank our loyal riders who have endured this unprecedented time with us, and look forward to seeing many of you back on VRE trains soon. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. We'll go into number 8, which is the public comment. Public comments for this meeting are being taken electronically. Members of the public need to visit VRE.org to link to the public comment. The link will remain open throughout the meeting, and the clerk will read all the public comments at the end of this meeting. So we will jump into action items now. And we'll start with 9A, authorization to execute a contract for mobile ticketing service. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to execute a contract with American Eagle for mobile ticketing services in the amount of $988,630 plus a contingency for a total amount not to exceed $1,087,493. And this will be for a base year and 5 option years. This contract will replace the current mobile ticketing provider Movil for the ticketing component of VRE Mobile. The total authorization sought includes the design, development, licensing, and a commission on the ticket sales. Phase 1 of the implementation of this is expected to be completed, and the phase 1 is just the basic VRE mobile ticket platform. Of course, part of this procurement had the ability to add on other technology and other communications pieces there. But again, the phase 1 or the base of this, so we are prepared to transition to a new platform once our contract with Movil expires in late November.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 9A?
So move, Supervisor Bailey.
Ralph Smith, second.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk, please call roll for the vote to approve resolution 9A.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bomke?
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton? Ms. Shelton? Chairman, I'm going to come back to Ms. Shelton. Mr. Skinner?
Why do you not get that?
Ms. Sheldon?
Yes, I said aye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes.
Thank you. Item 9B, authorization to execute a contract for federal government relations services. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to execute a contract with Cardinal Infrastructure LLC of Washington, D.C. for federal government relations services in an amount of $480,000 plus a contingency for a total amount not to exceed $504,000 for a base period of 3 years and 2 one-year option periods. The Operations Board previously approved this as a solicitation as this contract is set to expire later this year. The contract with Cardinal Infrastructure LLC for these services will assist VRE in our efforts to achieve federal government relations objectives as identified by the VRE Operations Board and incorporated in the annual legislative agenda approved by both commissions, and to address federal legislative, regulatory, and other issues as they arise.
Thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 9B?
Ralph Smith, I move the approval of resolution 9B.
Second,
I'll
Supervisor
second
Bailey.
Ms. Bomke.
Okay, we'll do it that one.
Okay, I've got it.
Do you have any?
That Dell has taken over for him. She's more junior.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this item?
This is Supervisor Bailey.
Yes, ma'am.
Rich, could you just give me a quick sampling of what this is? Just an example, quickly.
Yeah, just quickly, this is a contracted service we have with a firm that basically becomes the eyes and ears, if you will, of us on the federal side relative to potential legislation or regulations.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Supervisor Bomke. I do have a question. As I compare this to our legislative contracts that we have on our county side, seems like a high amount of money to me, but I'm not familiar with what VRE has paid in previous years. Is this the same company that we've used? Have we been happy with Cardinal? Are there other legislative bodies or groups out there that work in the same capacity? Is this a contract that we bid out? And what have they been able to achieve for us over the years?
Let me, I may not respond in order, Supervisor Bonke, but I think I can touch on most of this for you. So this is a competitive solicitation. So yes, we conducted a competitive solicitation, had multiple firms, I believe about 8 firms that responded to that solicitation. And then of course we have a technical evaluation team that pares down those proposals and then recommends this award. Specifically, Cardinal Infrastructure LLC, they were actually a sub to the previous contract that we had. So yes, they are familiar with VRE, and from that aspect, yes, we've been happy with the work that they've done. In terms of cost, this is just using round numbers. This is roughly about $100,000 a year over the next 5 years. And this is actually lower than what we paid during the previous contract. I'm not sure. I think if we're comparing apples to apples from scope and stuff like that, I'm not obviously familiar with your county or the similar services from your county, but I could just give you that comparison to what we've done in the past. And again, this will be slightly lower in cost for us moving forward. Did I catch most of them? Most of your questions?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Supervisor Bailey, Rich, this is something, you brought this to us, I want to say May, April, or was it, you brought this to us before, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of your budget. Didn't you present this to us before?
So maybe what you're referring to is we have 2 similar contracts, services contracts. One is for state-specific legislative services, and then the other is for federal.
Federal, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the one you're referring to, because it was at the end of my recollection is either at the end of last year, right at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, at the beginning of this year, yes.
Exactly. So we awarded a similar contract for state services at the beginning of the year. So this would be to some degree a companion service, but again,
Yes.
at the federal level.
Yes, that's what I thought. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll ask for the roll call, please.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bonke?
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson, I didn't catch that.
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton? Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Cindy Shelton.
Has left the meeting.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Going into 9C, authorization to execute a sole source contract with, is it
Scheidenbachman.
Bachman for fair media validators. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to execute a sole source contract with Scheiden Bachman for fair media validators in the amount of $391,000 plus a contingency for a total amount not to exceed $469,200. Just in summary, VRE currently owns 69 ticket vending machines, and they are manufactured by Scheiden Bachman as part of our automated fare collection system. These
Has
machines
joined the meeting.
provide two primary functions. They provide ticket sales and ticket validations. Those ticket vending machines are deployed across all 19 of our stations. As VRE extends platforms, in some cases added second platforms, we've elected strategically to pursue fair media validators. In other words, a device that will just simply validate the ticket, not necessarily provide the purchase of the ticket, because we simply don't need a station full of all ticket vending machines. And part of this is simply a matter of cost. These validating machines are about a third of the cost of a full-blown ticket and validating machine. So strategically, again, we want to pursue this purchase and have those ready as we continue to expand the capacity across our entire system, specifically at our stations.
And I'd like to just add real quick before we ask for the motion, and that is, you know, if you buy a monthly ticket or you've got a weekly ticket, then that makes the process a little bit faster, because the people who are buying a daily ticket or something that may be at the ticket machine, yeah, you can go right by it and you can put your ticket in to validate it. So I think it'll make the process faster, and if the process is faster, our customers are happier. Anyway, do I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 9C?
Move Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Bennett Parker.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll ask the clerk.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, go
this
ahead.
is Katie. I just wanted to ask, are we, do we see a potential for moving forward either within the life of this contract or in the future into contactless validation methods, so like a tap and validate, which I think some more forward-looking systems have been able to implement, although we've been frustrated in the national capital region to do. Do we see that as a possibility either within the life of this contract or in the future?
This Crystal, this is Rich. I think we all have similar aspirations as far as contactless fair media. As you know, that's a topic for the region, if you will, to have similar systems. At the end of the day, we still feel that for a long period of time, we will still have a version of fair media that's a paper ticket. So again, hence the reason why we don't think we need to go out and purchase additional ticket vending machines for the sales, but there still will be that need for validation. I think that's basically where we see it at right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If none, I'll ask the clerk, please call roll for the vote to approve item 9C.
Ms. Bailey.
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Bomke. Mr. Sendejas.
Aye.
Ms. Crystal.
Aye.
Ms. Franklin.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Lawson.
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell.
Aye.
Ms. Shelton.
Aye.
Chairman Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Stork.
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you very much. 9D, authorization to issue a GEC 7 task order for the survey services for the LaFont Station and 4th Track project. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to issue a GEC Services 7 task order to NXL Construction Services for survey services for the LaFont Station and 4th Track project in an amount of $178,421 with a contingency not to exceed $214,105. This is fairly standard for this phase of the project. The purpose of the task order is to conduct a property boundary and topographical survey to support alternative analysis, design, and land acquisition activities for this project. The information gathered for this task order may also be used for adjacent VRE and DRPT projects as well.
Rich, quick question. The 20% contingency, is there a reason for 20% instead of 10%?
Yeah, in this particular one, particularly because we, as it mentions here, there's work here that preempts potential land acquisitions or easements in that area. And as I know you're familiar with the LaFont Station area and stuff, a lot of that, in addition to it being very tight there, there's National Park Service land, there's different things there. So we elected to go ahead and put a little bit more of a contingency in here. So as that particular research would be done in that area, that tends to lead you not to normal deed books, but in some cases to records kept by Congress. That was primarily the reason why we wanted to increase the contingency there to ensure that that the contract had enough in it in case some of that additional work needed to be done.
Thank you, Rich. Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 9D?
So move Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Bennett Parker.
got it?
Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll go ask the clerk, please call roll for the vote to approve item 9D.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bomke?
Aye.
Mr. Senderos?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes.
Thank you. Number 9E, authorization to amend the contract for financial advisory services. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to execute a contract amending the PFM Financial Advisors contract for financial advisory services, which is a task order contract in the amount not to, increase the amount by $400,000 with a total amount not to exceed $700,000. Just want to point out that this request for authorization is simply just to increase the contract value. And of course, this is for work that's projected on an individual task order basis. For those individual task orders that are above $100,000, those task orders will obviously come back to the operations board for final approval. Task orders below $100,000, in accordance with the delegation of authority, can be executed by the CEO, and of course with the a monthly report, any task order that's between $50,000 and $100,000 will be reported on the monthly spending authority report. So again, this is just increasing the contract value because we have a range of needs that are coming up for additional support and analysis from PFM, and that includes treasury consulting services, financial planning, modeling software, and financial advisory services, in part as it relates to some planned contributions to the Commonwealth's Transforming Rail in Virginia program.
Thank you, Rich. Are there any questions?
Supervisor Bailey.
Yes, ma'am.
Rich, how long have we been with this company, and just your assessment in terms of return on investment, positive, negative, not negative, but positive? Where are we in terms of the relationship and return on investment?
Okay, let me go back. I believe this contract was executed after a competitive solicitation process back in 2017.
Okay.
The contract was for a total of 9 years.
Okay.
This contract also is shared with other jurisdictions. And just want to make that note, we're not the only ones that use PFM.
Okay,
And
that's important. Okay.
yes, and in terms of return on investment, let me just say it this way. And I think my previous statement speaks for itself. The fact that others in the region use this same financial advisor, this is probably one of the best that I've ever been engaged with myself, just simply because they're not only very professional, but very tuned into the financial markets, very tuned into financial strategy. They have technology, they have software, and frankly, they don't. They're very concise and very prompt, if you will, in the interactions that we've had. So.
Okay, prompt is key. And please understand, I asked the question as a new board member, just trying to get your feel for the relationship and the productivity.
Absolutely. No, that's those are great questions.
Thank you so much.
No other questions? I'll ask first of all, I need a motion and a second to approve resolution 9E.
So move, Andrea Bailey.
Second, Bennett Parker.
All right, good. I will ask the clerk, please call roll for the vote to approve 9E.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bomke?
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 9F, authorization to amend the GEC 7 task order for design services for Quantico Station improvements. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to amend the current task order for design services for Quantico Station improvements, which was executed with STV Inc. under the GEC Consulting Services 7 contract in the amount of $217,072 plus a contingency. The total authorization for this task order contract will not exceed $1,069,612. This is obviously the design task order that we've had with STV for the Quantico design improvements. During the final design, several elements requiring additional work have been identified for the Quantico station improvements. The additional work includes some final stakeholder coordination, review and comments, as well as associated responses, revisions, permit coordination, so on and so forth. And of course, leading up to the bid package, and then and we are currently out on the street for solicitation for the construction. The service will of course help us evaluate those bids and continue moving this project along. Yes, there was some additional work, some additional scope involved in this, and of course, additional funding has been provided to us by DRPT for this additional work.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Do I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 9F?
Move, Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Bennett Parker.
Thank you. Do I have any questions?
Thank you, Rich.
Hearing none, I will ask the clerk, please call the vote to approve item 9F.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bomke?
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. When we move on to item 9G, authorization to withdraw from standard project agreements with the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority for Lorton and Ripon stations. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The VRE Operations Board is asked to authorize the acting CEO to formally withdraw from the existing standard project agreements with the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority for Lorton and Ripon stations. As you recall, at the June operations meeting, staff presented to you a brief update on the impacts on VRE station projects as a result of the Commonwealth's Transforming Rail in Virginia program. Of course, that's not a bad thing. Specifically, VRE's planned station improvement projects at Lorton and Ripon have changed, and the NVTA funding originally committed to these two projects is no longer needed at this time. And then just finally, with the concurrence of VRE, the NVTA has already acted at its July 9th, 2020 meeting to cancel the project agreements for Lorton and Ripon in order to make the unencumbered funding available for allocation in a timely fashion, which was done at the July 9th meeting. So this action here is just simply the preference is for us to withdraw, voluntarily withdraw the projects versus NVTA canceling them. But because of timing of operations board meetings and authority meetings and stuff like that, NVTA took their action on July 9th. And so now we want to come back and with the action of the operations board, this transaction, if you will be formally recorded as a voluntary withdrawal by VRE.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 9F?
Mr. Chairman, Katie Crystal, move approval.
Thank you, Katie.
Hector Sendejas, second.
Who was that?
I think it was Mr. Day.
Hector Sendejas.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sendejas.
Do I have any questions on this?
This is Supervisor Franklin. I don't have a question per se because Rich and I talked about this previously, but just want to stay for the group that he and I discussed, just keeping me updated on future NVTA funds that can go towards the Ripon effort. Obviously understanding since we're kind of at the funding end for NVTA for this round, for what projects that they would consider, just making sure that we can be kept in mind moving forward. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a statement as well. I think I might be the only operations board member on the authority, so I just wanted to share that at the authority meeting last week to move forward with the 2-year update to the 6-year plan, the money from these projects was reallocated largely to the Franconia Springfield bypass, which is a really important project as part of the Transforming Rail initiative that will essentially separate passenger rail from freight rail and allow us to really maximize a lot of the potential benefits of transforming rail. So wanted to share for anyone interested that the withdrawal of our projects enabled another really important piece, or more funding for a really important piece of this overall package.
Thank you, Crystal. Ms. Crystal. If there are no more questions, will the clerk please call the vote to approve 9G?
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bonke?
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. Well, item number 10, which is information items. This is a fiscal year 2022 key budget issues. It's a presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the operations board members. So despite the unusual circumstances that we are in, we are sticking to our normal budget process. We will be presenting a preliminary FY22 budget in September for the operations board's consideration, with final budget approval and the referral to the commissions scheduled for December. Today, we are kicking off the 22 process with a discussion of key issues to make sure that all the challenges that we face are clearly identified and publicly addressed well before we get to the final approval. As you can imagine, the budget adoption process for 22 is going to be unlike any in recent years as a result of the pandemic. For those who recall last year's budget, for example, we talked about a number of important sort of detailed issues like diesel fuel and DRPT's new approach to capital grants. And we're still working on those things, but the broader policy and economic issues are really going to dominate the discussion this year. Accurately forecasting ridership and revenue in this environment will be very difficult. We expect to select an approved projection for ridership and revenue near the end of the budget process in order to have the time to gather as much information as we can. And lastly, we always amend the current year's budget as a part of the approval of the next year's budget. And usually this is relatively technical. You know, we update a few expenses here or a few grants there. But this time around, amending the 21 budget will be a very substantive part of the process, as whatever we project for 22 has to also incorporate new projections for the rest of 21. So with that, let's go to the issues. The big issue, number one, of course, is revenue. As Rich discussed earlier, ridership is slowly and steadily rising off of the lows that we had back in April, but is still down close to 95% from what we would consider normal. If we translate those riders into dollars, in June, our fare revenue was down about 80% relative to normal. Revenue is still running a little bit ahead of ridership because some passengers and the benefits managers at some of the agencies are continuing to purchase tickets in anticipation of returning to work, but not really knowing exactly when they will. There's great uncertainty about how and when ridership may return, and thus how and when our revenue may return. This is probably the question on all of our minds, and it's going to depend on some things that we do have influence over. A critical one being as Rich was talking about before, what is the rider's perception of safety on our trains? But there are some issues that are outside of VRE that are bigger than VRE. One of the biggest issues, of course, is the question of telework. And is there a potential for sort of a new normal of travel and commuting on all modes, not just on VRE? This is an issue that both the MBTA and the NBTC are working hard on, and we are coordinating closely with them on that work. From a narrower sort of budget process perspective, given the uncertainty over sort of the pace of growth and what sort of the level of growth we might top out at is, we'll be looking at a whole range of possible scenarios as we go through the fall, drawing on all the experts, all the available information that we have. And then by mid-November, we expect to choose a final ridership and revenue forecast as the basis for the budget. Shifting the revenue a little bit, we also have to prepare for a possible reduction in state support as a result of shortfalls in state tax revenues and collections. The Commonwealth has been working to reprogram existing capital funds to support current critical transit operations. And the operating assistance that we have gotten for the first quarter of this year of 21 has remained at the same level that we had last year in fiscal 20. But the funding levels in the future still remain pretty uncertain. But we should know some more in this direction by the end of the summer. So let's talk about the CARES Act. The CARES Act has provided VRE with funding equal to approximately 2 years worth of our fare revenue in order to backstop our lost revenues and also to support the additional expenses we have related to COVID. So if you take one thing away from what I say today, it's this. With that funding, we will get through this year and next year, 21 and 22, providing that safe and reliable service without having to ask your jurisdictions to fill the fare revenue gap. So I see the CARES Act as getting us through the pandemic. And then we need to use this time to prepare for whatever the new normal is after the pandemic. Next one, please, Robert. So issue 2 is our policy of alternating increases in jurisdictional contribution and passenger fares. So the approved 21 budget, the year that we're now in, included a 3% increase in jurisdictional subsidy and kept passenger fares the same. Under the board's sort of existing policy direction, the starting point for a normal 22 budget would be no change to the total subsidy and consideration of a 3% increase in the fares. However, given the situation, we will be looking at other alternatives. At the outset of the pandemic back in the spring, we committed to you all, to the jurisdictions, that we would not make any request for additional jurisdictional contributions in fiscal 21. In that same spirit, VRE will not ask for any additional jurisdictional subsidy increase in fiscal 22. However, we do need to make decisions about how to allocate the subsidy, and this is a topic that we will talk about in more detail at the Finance Committee after this board meeting. The thumbnail is we do not believe that we will be able to get reliable data, the residents of riders, if we take our normal master agreements survey in early October. And so we will need to consider alternative approaches for fiscal 22. So then on passenger fares, there are 3 alternatives that I think we need to consider with respect to passenger fares. One is an increase of 3% or less. 2 is no change, and 3 is a reduction. There are pros and cons to each of these approaches, and we will be seeking your feedback on this as we move through the process. At this early stage, I would suggest that we think about the passenger fares as one component among many that may influence a rider's decision to come back to VRE. and also to keep in mind the relationship between what the listed fare is and the amount that a rider may actually pay that comes out of their pocket. Next one, please, Robert. Issue 3, reducing expenses. This one is pretty straightforward. We will be looking closely at all discretionary expenses in the operating budgets, both this year and next year, particularly professional services, consulting, the replacement of existing things like equipment, technology, and any new non-critical kind of initiatives. Where it's practical, we will be deferring or eliminating those expenses this year and next year. And as a reminder, in addition to the deferrals of the COLA and the merit increases that we have already put in place for 21, we have also deferred the hiring of the new employees that had been approved in the 21 budget. Issue number 4, Rich was talking about this just a bit ago, the Transforming Rail in Virginia program. I would say there are 3 main impacts to that in the budget process. As we discussed with you last month, the program is going to have a substantial impact on our CIP. And so as we move through the fall, we'll be fleshing out the changes to those project scopes and timelines and the grants that support the projects. 2, we are in the process of negotiating a new track access agreement with the Commonwealth, and ultimately it will be with the new Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. And that is expected to come into effect during this fiscal year. And 3rd, as a part of last year's budget approval, those of you who were here will recall that the Operations Board authorized us to continue discussions with DRPT about a contribution to the Long Bridge project and to the overall rail transformation program coming out of our commuter rail operating and capital fund, the CROC. Likely as a combination of pay-as-you-go cash and the proceeds from a debt issuance. We currently have committed $15 million to Crystal City and $30 million to LaFont using our FY19 to 21 CROC funds. Those commitments remain in place, but we don't expect, as a part of this year's budget process, to recommend any further commitments until our discussions with DRPT have been resolved. Those discussions will be occurring sort of separately from, but roughly in parallel to, the budget adoption process. And we expect to return to you as the board at least once and probably more than once with information items about this well before we ask you to take any kind of action. Next one, please, Robert. The last 2 issues. Number 5 is insurance. And this is another topic that we'll cover in a little more detail at the committee afterwards. But the short version here is that commuter and freight rail properties across the country are facing major challenges right now in securing their required liability and property insurance coverages. These challenges are not related in any way to our safety record or the nature of the operations that we have, but instead it's the result of capacity constraints in the global insurance markets that are related to the wildfires that happen on the West Coast and a lot of other claims. We did secure all the required coverage that we need to operate this year, but the premiums did increase rather substantially, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what might happen next year. This is not the kind of issue where we can just wait around and hope that these issues resolve themselves. Rich is going to talk in the committee meeting in more detail about what the alternative approaches are that we're pursuing so that we can continue to secure the necessary coverage at a reasonable and sustainable cost. And then the last issue is our baseline capital charge contribution to the Northeast Corridor. Since we operate into Union Station, we are a user of the Northeast Corridor, and so we have to contribute to the capital renewal of the corridor, which is really just the ongoing repair and replacement of all the railroad infrastructure. All the users of the corridor, and that includes us, contribute what is called the BCC, the baseline capital charge. Those amounts are set by a cost allocation policy that's overseen by the Northeast Corridor Commission, And we make our BCC payment as a part of our larger, as a part of our larger access agreement that we have with Amtrak. The commission has recently changed that cost allocation policy. If you think about the capital renewal needs in the corridor as a pie, the policy changes have both increased the size of that pie. They've brought more of the assets into the calculation. And they have also increased VRE's share of the pie, by changing the assessment of who uses what parts of the corridor. The preliminary changes the preliminary result of these changes is that our required annual contribution could increase from currently approximately $600,000 to more than $3 million. Many of you probably already know this, but Rich now represents VRE directly on the commission as a non-voting member. And so further discussions are going on now with the commission and with Amtrak on the allocation methods that have been proposed, and also about what the timing would be for bringing any of those costs into the contract. So those are our top half dozen issues for the coming year. I will close with, again, just a reminder on the calendar. We'll present the preliminary budget in September. In October and November, we will dig into that preliminary budget with you, the board, with the committee, and with your jurisdictional staff. And then we will present the final 22 budget in December for the board approval and the referral to the commissions in January. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mark? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 10B, spending authority report. Rich, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before I start, I will hit each one of these items, but what you'll see here is just simply a theme between two contracts that were awarded, one being the Mechanical Engineering Consulting Services 7 contract, and of course, the annual renewal of the Keolis contract. At this time, it is at this time each year that we stand up some task orders within those contracts to provide just some general services for us within those contracts throughout the fiscal year. So as noted at the first bullet, there was a task order to STV, again, just for engineering services support for our life cycle maintenance projects. The second bullet is for Keolis, or is a task order to Keolis to purchase and install social distancing and floor decals and on VRE passenger rail cars. That was something that's not a standard task order, but that's some work that just was recently done. Next, Robert. We did a task order here again with Keolis to purchase and install. Did the one for decals to purchase and install sanitizer dispensers. We've done a task order here with for the purchase, or with TI Inc. for the purchase of carts to be utilized at Broad Run and Crossroads maintenance facilities. Those are carts that are used within the maintenance and storage facilities to haul parts and tooling and stuff like that. And then the top bullet there is a task order to STV for general engineering services for the first year of their new contract. The second bullet here is a task order to provide the work under the NTD for asset management consulting and reporting. And then finally, under the MEC contract, this is oversight for the ongoing project for procurement of, or excuse me, the overhaul for rail car trucks. That's it.
Rich, thank you very much. Item going back to item 8, which was report electronically submitted public comments. Leslie, do we have any comments?
I have the one that I sent out earlier this week from Mr. Eric Olson. Mr. Olson writes, Metro tracks in Illinois connect to VRE and run into Washington, D.C. making its upcoming procurement decisions for rolling stock relevant for VRE. Metro received nearly $500 million in CARES Act emergency domestic relief funding and is actively in discussions with procurement bidders for capital improvement projects, including rolling stock. Does VRE consider it appropriate to use taxpayer dollars allocated to invest in the U.S. and keep Americans at work with Chinese government-owned enterprises like CRRC that source most of their steel and components in China? Shouldn't these emergency funds from DC be kept in Illinois and the US? For additional context, language was included in the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act that immediately banned CRRC from contracting with WMATA. Congress and the administration recognized the risk of allowing Chinese SOE to operate in the nation's capital. Is VRE considering this language and its relevance to the upcoming Metro decision and how that impacts VRE? That is all, Mr. Chair.
That's all it is. Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this time, we're going to go into closed session.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
just in terms of protocol, do we address any of the questions?
We do not at public comment.
Okay, but I'm assuming you all will get back to the individual?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
But we do not at any public comment. It's just for us to listen and for future discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, as I was saying, it's now time for us to go into closed session, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Crystal. She'll read us the motion for closed session. Katie, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Skinner. Colleagues, I move that pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia, the VRE Operations Board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing one personnel matter concerning an appointee of the commissions. Do I have a second?
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
Second to the Supervisor Bailey. Great. Thank you so much. And Mr. Chair, if we could call for a vote.
Yes, please. Let's see what you call the vote, please.
Yes, Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Before you leave, just let
Ms.
us know
Bomke?
everybody's in the lobby.
Aye.
Mr. Savitsky?
And we got
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner? Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinson?
Aye.
Katie. Katie.
Great. Thanks very much. Yes, please, Mr. Skinner.
I'm going to have Robert to make sure that everybody in closed session has
Thank
been.
you so much. And I believe Mr. Stoka was also going to see if we could switch to a mode where we could view one another and turn our cameras on. Is that still possible?
So Ms. Crystal, Robert Hostelka, and yes, I'm going to set up a system down here. Let's take about 5 or 8 minutes for me to get things set up for
Great.
closed session.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Stoka, would it help if we were to log off while you do that, or should we stay logged on while you do that?
No, it would be okay
Has
for everyone.
left the meeting.
To stay on?
Yes.
If I'm
Thank you.
not logged on, will I see it up there?
Okay, so colleagues, why don't we assume that we'll rejoin at about 10:20, let's say 10:25. Does that work for everyone?
Good for me.
Okay, we'll see you all back at this location with cameras on if possible at 10:25. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A participant has left the meeting.
John, I'm testing the audio here. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I am about to make you presenter so that you can resume the presentation. Okay, confirming recording is resuming. Yep, recording is in progress now. Let me confirm the live stream. It looks like the live stream is up and running. All people in the lobby have been readmitted. And I now see the slides. I think we're good to go. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to come out of closed session, if that's acceptable. All right, thanks so much, Mr. Skinner. I'm sorry?
Stand by just a moment, Ms. Crystal.
Okay, wait a moment, is that what you said?
Yes, please. Thank you.
There we go. Hey, Katie.
Yes.
Ooh. Sorry. Katie, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, you may have seen that Rich and I went off the meeting, but we're still actually here in order to use these mics properly. We are here.
Okay, so are we ready to certify?
Yes.
Let me just confirm one more item, Ms. Crystal. Yes, we are good to go.
Great, thanks so much. So I move that the Operations Board certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge and with no individual member dissenting, at the just concluded closed session, number one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act were discussed, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered. Do I have a second?
Second, Bennett Parker.
Leslie, will you please call the roll?
Is Ms. Bailey?
Here.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Bonte?
Aye.
Ms. Zendaya?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton? Mr. Skinner? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stork? Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
And that,
Thank you.
Mr. Stork was an aye. I'm sorry, I didn't have my, couldn't mute in time. Mr. Stork was an aye.
thank you so much. Got it.
And just for the record, I don't believe Ms. Shelton was on the closed session call due to her location.
Okay.
Okay, so
And Mr. Chair, this is Katie Crystal. May I make one brief comment?
Yes, please.
Yes, excellent. Which is to thank the members of the operations board for that discussion and to note that we look forward to making a public communication about our recommendation for the next CEO of VRE after the commissions have had an opportunity to vote in early September. And we look forward to communicating with our much valued members of the VRE staff quietly ahead of that announcement.
Thank you very much. It's now going to be board. Would you go through the
Yes.
and see if anybody has a comment? Thank you.
Ms. Bailey,
No comment.
Ms. Bennett Parker,
No comment.
Ms. Baumke,
No comment.
Mr. Sendejas,
No comment.
Ms. Crystal,
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Franklin,
No comment.
Mr. Kelly,
No comment.
Ms. Lawson,
Pass.
Ms. Mitchell,
No comment.
Mr. Skinner.
Yes, I have a comment. I want to take and thank Katie Crystal for all the hard work she did coordinating all this search. Everybody that was involved in it, I appreciate it very much. Katie did a great job and thank you.
Thank you.
The mic is on.
Mr. Smith,
I pass.
Mr. Stork,
I would just echo Mr. Skinner's comments. I think she's done an excellent job, and I appreciate all the work of the committee. Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Walkinshaw,
I was planning to say the same thing as Mr. Skinner and Stork. Thank you to Ms. Crystal for your incredible work on the search committee and everyone who was involved. It was a big effort and a lot of time and energy went into it. So thank you to everyone.
Okay. All right. So a reminder that we're going to go into another meeting after this. Everybody invited to remain if you'd like to. We'll have a motion to adjourn now, and that's just for the regular meeting, but we go into the fiscal financial committee meeting, and I believe Miss Katie Crystal is heading that one also.
Has joined the meeting.
You've done such a good job, Katie. We're going to keep you with all these chairs.
No rest for the weary.
A motion to adjourn, please. In a second.
So moved, Mitchell.
Okay.
Second, Bailey.
Mitchell and Bailey, thank you. And we'll call the roll one last time, please.
yes, Ms. Bailey. Ms. Bennett,
Aye.
Ms. Baumke,
Aye.
Mr. Sendejas,
Aye.
Ms. Crystal,
Aye.
Ms. Franklin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Lawson,
Aye.
Ms. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Skinner,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Stork,
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, we are adjourned.
We are adjourned, and folks, let's take about 5 minutes. Anybody need to use the restrooms and stuff like that? It's now 12:13. How about we start this up in about 12:20? It's about 7 minutes.
That works for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Katie, we see it's 20 after. If you're ready to go, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So welcome. Could we perhaps do a quick roll call of the VRE Operations Board members who are on the line with us? I think I see Ms. Bailey. Is that right?
Would you like Leslie to do that?
I think that would be helpful, Leslie. Can you see the names in attendance?
We can. Ms. Crystal, I see Mr. Walkinshaw, Ms. Lawson, Ms. Bailey, Mr. Henry from VRE, Ms. Bennett Parker, Mr. Sendejas, and Ms. Nutter from VRE, Kristen Nutter, and Stephen McIsaac on the line.
And Rich and I are here too.
Excellent, thank you. And I imagine we have Mark Schofield. I hope we do.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for making time. It's been a long morning already, but we have a couple of important items that really couldn't be deferred any longer. And so if we could perhaps next go to the agenda, I hope that's on the slide. Great, thank you. So a couple of important pieces that really do need the attention and recommendation from the Finance Committee are the delegation of authority limits and the subsidy allocation question, which is a big one, and obviously one that will be particularly live as we see ridership numbers, which are the source of information about the subsidy allocations by the jurisdictions, change pretty dramatically as a result of the pandemic. So we wanted to make sure to cover that, as well as briefly talk about our insurance and then provide an opportunity for Q&A on the fiscal 2020 budget that Mr. Schofield presented in the main meeting, any comments or direction that we want to pass on to the whole operations board. So to go to that first item, Mr. Schofield, I wonder if I could turn to you to tee this up for us. Would that be possible?
Absolutely. I'm ready to go. I do just want to reemphasize what Ms. Crystal said. For items 1 and 2, we are looking for the committee to give us direction that we can then know what to bring to the whole board. So when we get to the ends of each of those items, that's what we have in mind. So I'll jump right into number 1 here. As you know from the spending authority report, the CEO's delegated spending authority was increased back in 2015 up to 100,000 from its previous level of 50,000. And all those purchases in that $50,000 to $100,000 range are communicated to the board monthly in the report. The increase up to 100,000 came out of a recommendation of a larger management audit that was conducted by Parsons Brinkerhoff, which looked at a number of different issues across the organization, how to run VRE more effectively. The audit also recommended regularly revisiting these delegation limits in light of inflation, in light of any changes to law or to regulation, things like that. And there was actually just in this most recent General Assembly session a change in law that is relevant, to this discussion that raised the state's small purchase threshold to $200,000. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Next slide, please. I hope you can all see the table here. What this table shows is a full 2 years worth, calendar 2018 and calendar 2019. We left off the last 6 months because it's been a little bit atypical recently, but 2 whole years worth of the procurements that came before the operations board, the awards for their approval. In this 2-year period, we had 14 contract awards in that value between 100,000 and 200,000. These are listed in chronological order. I've highlighted in blue the 3 of them that are actually sort of brand new contracts: the railcar end-body door diaphragm kits, the electric motor parking brake systems, and the construction of a temporary platform at Quantico. The other 11 were either task orders under existing contracts that the board had already approved, amendments to existing contracts or purchase orders, or extensions of existing leases. When I look at this list, I am confident that this 2-year period is representative of the normal business of VRE, and that it indicates that these are the types of future actions that would be delegated to the CEO under a change in the delegation, that they are appropriate for staff level discretion, and that they don't really rise to the level of sort of key policy decisions. I will add that when we started this analysis a while back, the General Assembly had not yet made that change to the procurement law. And so we were weighing whether to recommend a new limit of 150,000 or 200,000. But I feel now confidence saying that with the state considering anything under $200,000 to be a small purchase, I think that having our delegation of authority match that level and also be $200,000 is appropriate for VRE. So that's step one of the recommendation. We could stop there, but I'd like us to consider also a second step. Thank you, Robert. Right now, for any planned purchase that is over $100,000, the board gets to act twice. They first have to authorize the issuance of the solicitation, either the IFB or the RFP, and then they have to authorize the award of the contract to the firm that is either the low bidder or the top ranked proposer. We could simply raise the limit to $200,000 for both the issuance and the award. But the second step of our staff proposal here is to increase that limit for the issuance of the IFB or the RFP to $1 million. This is actually very similar to another recommendation that was included in that management audit back in 2015, but that was not implemented at the time. I know that $1 million may sound like a large number. What would that mean in practical terms for VRE? Here on the page are some examples over that same 2-year period, 2018 and 2019, of board approved solicitations in that $200,000 to $1 million range. Light fixtures, pavement repairs and striping. Oh, sorry, we have a train going by.
On time, by the way.
On time.
Fortunately, it's a freight.
Well, they have to be on time as well. Sorry, Madam Chair.
That's all right. Light fixtures, pavement repairs. Sorry.
I was just saying, by all means.
Website management services and forklift trucks. So if this additional change in the delegation were approved, the operations board would still have to approve the award of contracts like these, no question. But the issuance of the IFB or the RFP would be handled by staff without requiring any initial board approval. I would also note that the approvals for the issuing the IFBs and the RFPs like this are almost always placed on the consent agenda for the board. So even now, they are not getting a whole lot of discussion at the board level. And just again, to sort of draw a contrast, I can give you an idea of the kinds of procurements that are over $1 million and that the operations would still get that sort of double approval on. Things like the final design for the Broad Run expansion project, our new passenger rail cars, our joint procurement with Metra in Chicago, the delivery of our diesel fuel for the VRE locomotives, and the construction of the Quantico station improvements. All of those big kinds of procurements, the board would absolutely still get 2 approvals on. And the last part of our staff recommendation is that we would recommend that the current spending authority report be expanded to include everything that is currently approved by the board that would now be delegated to the CEO. And I think in particular that the report on the issuances of the IFBs and the RFPs between that $200 to $1 million range, I think that would serve as a good sort of a heads up to the board members, you know, that these are the actions that you should expect to see coming to you in the next few months. And when that report is presented to the board, it would absolutely be an opportunity to ask questions, you know, well in advance of the actual award of the contract. Next slide, please, Robert. So at this point, I'd like to turn it back to Ms. Crystal for her comments and for the Q&A, but this slide again just summarizes what the recommendation is. Increase the CEO, the delegated authority for the award of contracts to $200,000, the delegated authority for the issuance of a solicitation to $1 million, and to expand the spending authority report to capture all of that information.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Schofield, and thank you for the thoughtful preparation as well as presentation of these recommendations. You know, I certainly am supportive of the contract award increase. The question I had about the issue for solicitations or the authority to issue solicitations was more for projects that are potentially not already in our CIP. I think for projects that are within our CIP, this certainly makes sense, but rather projects that are new or reflect a change in VRE operations. I think a great example was the mobile ticketing system RFP. And I do worry a little bit about, if the first time we see those is at a time of a bid, it doesn't give the operations board the opportunity to ask as many questions about whether this is a contract we should be awarding or service we should be contracting for. It's more focused on, whether the contractor is the right awardee. However, I think that you've answered that well by describing making the issue for solicitations part of the regular presentation as part of the spending authority report of the CEO. So I think we still have those issues raised and an opportunity to ask questions. And I think the other hope that I would have with that monthly report as a backstop, but the hope that I would have is what you all have already been doing, which is teeing up issues for us that may be associated with an invitation to bid or an RFP, such as the mobile system rebid, through separately as part of the CEO report, so that we can stay informed and we have the opportunity to raise questions about the service or the contract as well as the contractor. That was a very roundabout way of saying that I support the recommendation and give some feedback. So colleagues, questions, thoughts, concerns?
Ms. Crystal, while we wait for any comments, I think your point about the mobile ticketing is a great one. And I think for sort of strategic issues like that, we will continue the practice of bringing an information item to the board to let when it's important like that, to let them know what's coming down the road.
And I think that's been a helpful way of discussing major issues facing our operations. All right. I don't know if everyone's just quiet because this has been a long day of meetings already. I don't believe that it's generally been our practice in Finance Committee, although it's been a little while since I chaired it, to take formal votes. But I think we would be looking for some feedback about whether the other members of the Finance Committee would be comfortable bringing this forward to the full Operations Board as our recommendation as well. So thoughts or objections to that?
I think it's a good way to do it.
Madam Chair, this is Elizabeth Bennett Parker. I'm comfortable moving this forward to the main board.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett Parker. Okay, so I think I'm hearing no dissent. So when we talk about this in September with the rest of the Operations Board, we can represent it as the Finance Committee's recommendation as well.
Okay.
I make a recommendation that silence is consent.
I'm not always comfortable with that phrase, but I think in this case we'll assume as much.
Okay.
All right, then let's move on to the to our next agenda item.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Crystal. So as most of you know, we normally conduct 2 surveys of our passengers each year. In the spring, we do a customer service survey to get their views on how we're doing. And then in the fall, we have this so-called master agreements survey, which collects the data on the jurisdiction of the residents of our riders and also on the specific trip that they're taking. Staff members of VRE and PRTC conduct these surveys, and our response rate on both of the surveys is very good, around 70%. And as you mentioned, Ms. Crystal, the data from that master agreement survey is directly used to allocate the jurisdictional subsidy. Those of you who have been around for a little while know that despite that high response rate, we do get year-to-year variation in the allocation percentages, and it can cause some angst among the jurisdictions who have to bear perhaps an unexpected increase. These are not like crazy variations. It's not like Manassas Park ends up being asked to pay the same amount as Prince William, but they can be enough to cause real sort of budgeting challenges, especially with the smaller jurisdictions. This year, we have a different challenge. To put it plainly, we don't believe that a survey conducted in early October will produce reliable results for the allocation of the subsidy. We expect significantly lower overall ridership with an unknown variation to our sort of quote unquote normal ridership. We also expect a lower overall response rate. Just to say, we don't know how the percentages would end up. We could actually get some crazy variations that would be simply not affordable for some of the jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So the preliminary view from Steve, who I believe is on the call with us, he's our counsel. He believes that there is some flexibility to interpret the master agreement to use potentially different measures of ridership. For example, use the prior year, use an average of past years, use an escalator of a previous year based on trends, whatever. We still need to take this all the way to ground with Steve, but the key will be consensus among the members on the board. So talking about one of those options, again, those who have been here for a while will recall that we have had earlier discussions about using a 3-year rolling average. I have on the slide here 2 examples. I didn't think we needed to look at all 9 of the jurisdictions of the advantages of using that kind of an average rather than each year's individual survey results. So in both cases, what you have there is a blue line of the actual subsidy that the jurisdiction paid, and in red is what it would have been had we used the 3-year rolling average. Prince William County, which is on the top, did have a genuine underlying upward trend in their share of the ridership of the VRE system over the period that we have here, while Manassas, which is on the bottom, their share of ridership over this period was basically flat. But in both cases, had we used the average, you would have had a significant smoothing of their jurisdictional contribution from year to year, as opposed to the jumps that both of the jurisdictions had. In particular, if you look at FY18 to FY19 there in the middle of the chart, both the jurisdictions experienced very large increases, whereas had we been using a rolling average, that would have smoothed that out quite a bit. If we looked at all the other jurisdictions, you would see similar results, a much smoother kind of approach if we had used the rolling average. So if we choose not to do a survey this year and we were to pursue an approach like this, then we could use, for example, the average numbers from the FY19, 20, and 21 budgets as the basis then for allocating the 22 budget. Another option, we could also just use the values that we used last year for FY21. This is similar to the approach actually that the Federal Transit Administration is taking in allocating federal formula dollars. They know that the ridership and the service statistics that are generated this year will not be normal, and so they are choosing to use the same statistics that they used last year. Next slide, please. So again, I will turn it to Ms. Crystal for her comments and then for discussion. But to summarize here, we would like the committee, to concur with the staff recommendation that the master agreement survey be deferred and not be conducted in October, and actually be deferred until such time as we believe that reliable data can be collected. And of course, that would be an ongoing discussion between staff and the board. And then we would like guidance on the preferred method of allocation to show for the subsidy in the preliminary budget. This is not going to be binding in any way on the final budget. We can continue to have this discussion through the fall, but for September, when we come back to you and present the budget, we'd like to be able to kind of put a pin in this issue and be able to focus on some other key discussion topics, having gotten that guidance from you, the committee.
Madam Chair, this is Barry.
Please, Mr. Skinner.
A couple things I want to make sure. Mark, earlier when the whole board was together,
yes,
you said that from CARES, we're getting enough money to run for 2 years. Is that correct? Now, does that mean that that CARES money you're getting is combined with the subsidy? Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying we do need some subsidy along with the CARES, because isn't CARES
That's
basically taking care of what we don't get because of the,
Fair law. The CARES, yes,
Yes.
the CARES Act will take care of the fair revenue that we are losing. But we still need the support that we get, from DRPT, and we do still need support from the jurisdictions. We are absolutely committing that we're not going to ask for any more.
okay,
We're not going to ask the jurisdictions to fill what we're not getting out of the fare box. That can be handled by the CARES Act. But whatever amount we do end up asking the jurisdictions for in 22, we also have to think about how do we divvy it up.
well, I got two concerns here. One is revenue is down in every locality. I mean, I can tell you what we're down, and hopefully, because of the VRE gas tax, we're helping with some of that area. The other thing is, when we finally get back up and running at full pace, I don't know how many of those people who are now telecommuting are going to telecommute and continue to telecommute, because I think the workspace is finding they're getting more out of the people than the long drive from Spotsy all the way up to DC, which can be up to a 3-hour ride both ways, and go both ways. So my concern is we really won't know what ridership we have until we think it's peaked out. So my real concern is that the revenue we normally would get is not there. It hasn't been there. So we've got to take that. And I will tell you that for the city of Fredericksburg, that's hard pressed. And I'm sure Manassas, city of Manassas or Manassas, they're all finding a struggle without getting the local revenue in here. So I'm not sure average of previous 3 years, because it doesn't represent what's really happening. And if you could change my mind, I'd be happy to listen. Same as 2020.
Mr. Skinner, can I ask? I mean, I think the alternative would be to just say same as fiscal 21, but I don't know that that's a solution for the concern that you're raising. I think the concern you're raising is that some of our localities may not be able to meet a subsidy requirement at all. I don't know that fiscal 21 versus the average of 3 previous years has an impact on that concern.
Well, Katie, you hit it right on the spot. I think our concern is how many of the localities are going to be able to give the subsidiary as we did last year, because our income is really down. We're fortunate, I'll tell you, Spotsylvania fortunate, because we do get a lot of transits that fill the gas up instead of waiting to get into DC or even as far as Woodbridge and stuff of that. But I'm concerned about the smaller localities, and I'm not sure what the answer is, Madam Chair.
Yeah. I can say I'm on 3 different transportation bodies, and this has been the top topic on all of them. I think I might suggest that we try to figure out what the right policy framework is for VRE moving forward around jurisdictional subsidies, and then manage the spectacular revenue shortfalls and the near total loss of fare box recovery and any continuing support from the CARES Act or not, separately as this wears on and we start to have more information. I think about this, I support this, I should say, I should put my cards on the table. I support this 3-year rolling average as a matter of good policy, because I think it helps jurisdictions plan their budgets better. And I think it also helps increase confidence in VRE. I've seen, for example, at NVTC in the past, a member of Fairfax's delegation very concerned at Fairfax's one-off increases, and seeing that kind of breed distrust in how VRE balances its books. So I think the 3-year rolling average is worth pursuing. I don't want to fail to recognize the gravity of the kind of more existential issues facing all of us. But I also don't know that we should be failing to move forward on good policy changes because of that. Does that make any sense? I don't know how others are thinking or seeing these 2 issues.
Well, I think, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead, Mr. Skinner.
Kate, I'm not sure if you were on the board, Rich, you could tell me. At one time, probably about 5 years ago, Manassas couldn't make their payments. It's either City of Manassas or Manassas. So do you remember what exactly happened there? They were falling behind and couldn't make their subsidy. So, I think policy is fine, but in reality, we should be making something up that's going to be doable. And even when you look at the 3-year average, we're not even close to the 3-year average. And I'm not sure we're going to get half of the 3-year average under these conditions.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Yeah, and just I don't think I'm technically a member of this committee, so if I'm overstepping my bounds,
Glad you're with
let me
us.
know.
You might have been under strength otherwise.
I'm the treasurer, so I feel like I should, if money goes missing, the Washington Post will call me, I guess. I think, my only question, I agree from Fairfax's perspective, there's a lot of benefit toward going to the rolling 3-year average. My only question on that is, as we're looking at hopefully dramatic expansion of service and ridership over the next decade, does it create a situation where, if one jurisdiction benefits, additional trains, Long Bridge, et cetera, if one jurisdiction benefits and has more riders, are the other jurisdictions essentially subsidizing that for 2 to 3 years until the rolling average catches up? So, there are winners and losers to kind of regularizing those subsidies, and are we entering a period of time where those winners and losers could be more dramatic? And I'm not prejudging that. I think that's a question that I would have for staff in terms of our projections for increase in ridership. I would just hate to have us be in a position 5 years from now where there are real hard feelings between the jurisdictions that, one feels like they're subsidizing the other. And just to Mr. Skinner's comment, and, this was in the budget presentation earlier, I think we're definitely going to have to see and demonstrate, ways in which we're tightening our belt in the operations. And I don't know if that means flat subsidies or, a small reduction in subsidies over the next couple of fiscal years, but we're gonna have to really seriously address that. So in terms of, I have questions on the 3-year rolling average. I see the benefits, but I'm a little bit concerned about it. I think my initial reaction is, for now, that we look at the FY21 figures and just keep those in place.
Okay, I think that that was very well put. That's a really interesting point as well about the 3-year rolling averages policy going forward, given the change we're expecting to see. So, okay, so I think between you and Mr. Skinner, I'm hearing, at least for fiscal 22, same as fiscal 21 should be the method of allocation.
Well, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say, I think at this point, that would be my recommendation. And absolutely, there should be a broader conversation about the 3-year rolling average. And, I think the full operations board probably deserves to look at, some scenario planning of what that could look like.
Okay.
I would add this. Okay. We're just assuming if we take 2021, same as 20, I don't know exactly. We have statistics and we can say how much money, how big are the trains? Our operation costs, if we don't get back to normal, is going to be less. And if we do, because we're reducing cars, okay, we're reducing the amount of trains going up there. And I'm telling you, if you go back to 2021, our last subsidy or what we paid, then it's going to, it seems like we're not going to be able to handle it. And when I say we, there are going to be localities that can't bring up to it. So I guess my point is, we should first of all know what you predict to be the operation costs for the upcoming. And how did you get that?
Sure.
Are you using the 3-train system? Are you?
I would say coming to you in September with a jurisdictional subsidy that is the same as FY21 would be a very, I think, easy and clear starting point for the discussion. You would know that it's being allocated exactly the same way as last year. There would be no request overall for any increase in the subsidy. And then we could use that as the beginning of the budget discussion. And if the discussion heads down a road of, our current total jurisdictional contribution is about $18 million across all 9 of the jurisdictions. If the sense of the operations board is, you know what, that number needs to come down, we're not going to be able to support a number that high, then we can absolutely do that as we move through the fall.
I think if you're offering to start it and we're not making it what we take to the board, that's a good start. I have no problem starting there. Then I will at least request that we know what we predict our operating costs are.
Sure, absolutely.
And then we can subtract that from the fares that we're getting and then see how we can match it. I'll go along with that right now.
Sure.
But I'm going to tell you, I don't think it can be the same as 2021. That's just my opinion. I start there, but these are the type of things that we're going to really have to research and give us a pretty good prediction. And then go to the localities. I will tell you, if you ask Fredericksburg to pay what they paid last year, it's going to devastate them. I can't speak for the Northern, although I did know one time, like I said, either Manassas or Manassas City could not meet their obligation. It didn't stop them, and we worked with them. And that's what we'll have to do under this new financial plan.
Sure. And Madam Chair, this is Rich. Let me just respond to that real quick.
Oh, please do.
Thank you. The situation we were in, I think it was the city of Manassas Park before was, yes, they struggled paying a subsidy, but the point with this one of the points with this discussion is to get to the point where they understood what their subsidy was, that they were going to be short on. And then we were able to manage from there. I think the discussion happening here is that, and we've been having this discussion internally, our normal process is to go do this master agreement survey.
Yep.
And frankly, we think that that'll be problematic.
I'll agree with you.
Okay, so then we were just coming up with some alternatives here. And to Mark's point, what we want to do is we're okay modeling a couple of these approaches and bringing them back to you for further discussion. But the intent here was just to flush this out to some degree and understand, because this work will be happening between now and September. So just want to bring that.
The only thing I would caution us, I think, is to consider the method of allocation separately from the understanding of what the total bill or amount needed from the jurisdictional subsidies will be, because I think the former needs to be determined in the context that Gary was describing, right? Like what is even feasible for the jurisdictions. But I'm a little concerned if we determine what the format or the method of allocation on the basis of what folks can pay. That's just sort of how we're dividing up the pie. And I'm a little concerned that that pits the jurisdictions against one another. So I'd rather we, if we wanted to, I'd rather we set maybe the method of allocation ahead of determining what the total subsidy needs to be. And then we can have that conversation about what the total subsidy needs to be on the basis of what we can pay. I don't know if that makes sense, but my point is, if the method of allocation is an open question mark, then I think that could lead to a real sense of well, X jurisdiction can't pay this, so Y jurisdiction needs to pay more, and then we're not really on the basis of method at all. So I think I'd love to see us figure out, well, we'd like to at least, go in with fiscal 21, knowing that we're going to need to have some hard conversations about the total subsidy, for example.
Katie, that's a good start. I don't have a problem with that. I just see a lot of things that have to go into this, because if we same as the 2021, we're assuming that we had the same ridership and everything. I just want to make sure that we find out what the operations staff thinks we're going to need to run this show. And then we
Could I just jump in, because I think this may just be a point of confusion. So I think the proposal about same as fiscal 21 is method of allocation, not amounts. Does that make sense? So it's not saying automatically you pay what you paid in 21. It's you pay the same share that you paid in 21.
That's
percentage.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Because I agree, simply saying, everybody pays the same as we did last year is going to be problematic.
Has left the meeting.
That's right. If Prince William County paid 34% or whatever in FY21, we would initially model it that they would pay that same 34% in 22, and that would let us put that issue off to the side and focus on how big is that total pie of jurisdiction contribution going to be.
Gotcha. Okay, Katie, that I understand.
And
I understand that, and I would say if I pay 10% at Spotsylvania, 10% of what I paid last year, but the ridership isn't that big.
The cost
is going to be lower. So I'm going to pay 10% of the cost this year, which probably overall be less.
Has joined the meeting.
I understand, and I understand now, Katie.
Got it. Excellent.
Madam Chair, this is James Walkinshaw. I just, I agree with the way you framed it. And I think, to Gary's concern, I think that is why sticking to the FY21 percentage allocation makes sense. It is the most predictable for all the jurisdictions. And I say that recognizing, at least I think, if we were to move to a 3-year rolling average, right now, Fairfax would probably pay a little bit less, because our numbers have gone up quite a bit in the last year or so. But I just think for everyone's predictability, just sticking with the FY21 formula makes sense, but then having a long-term conversation about the efficacy of going to a 3-year rolling average. I just think if you change the formula now, you're going to have some jurisdictions, as they're wrestling, with their financial challenges, potentially, paying more as a percentage than they would have, than they did in FY21. And, I think that just makes it a little bit harder on them.
Has left the meeting.
I'm persuaded by that. I think it's a really good point.
Yeah, and I concur with him too, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I think then we're suggesting the approach be same as fiscal 21, but we could also tee up to the full ops board that we had some pretty lengthy conversations about being concerned about the overall size of the subsidy for certain. Did anyone disagree about proceeding with the same as fiscal 21? Okay, seeing none, I think that's where we have landed, Mr. Schofield, if that works for you.
That works. We will come prepared in September.
Okay, great, thanks.
Madam Chair, it is 1 o'clock. I will defer to you. We have really hit the two important ones.
Yes.
The insurance one is an information item. I was actually going to hand the baton over to Rich to talk about that one, but I will leave it to your discretion if we want to have that now or.
Mr. Dalton, if you don't mind, I'd love to see us defer this. It has definitely been a long day, and I know folks certainly have other demands on their time. I think those are important conversations, but I'd love to see us tackle them when we're maybe a little fresher. Does that work for you?
Absolutely. I'll be
poised, teed up, ready to go anytime moving forward that this committee is ready to do it, or even on a one-on-one basis. So.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close us out. Thank you to those of you who have hung in Mr. Sendejas, this really turned out to be a heck of a day for you, just filling in for your colleagues. So special thanks to you, as well as everyone who's hung in. With that, I think we can go ahead and close, and a big thank you to staff for facilitating another very successful virtual session, as well as Mr. Skinner.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie.
Okay.
Has left the meeting.
Elizabeth.
Has left the meeting.
It's just us. Okay. Stopping the recording. Ending the stream.